Great. Thanks, Brad. Well, it's really nice to do this. Uh, Human capital is really a passion for me and has been for a long time. If I go back a long way, I started my career actually in the entertainment industry as an
Oh,
engineer.
wow.
And so, but I decided I wasn't going to be particularly good at that. And I went back to school and actually qualified as an accountant. But
Okay.
what was interesting is as my accounting career progressed, especially as I got more senior, one of the things I got increasingly involved in is areas like service management and quality management, which of
Okay.
course naturally got me involved in people. We talk about people as our greatest asset, but they're really not an asset. We don't own them.
Yes. I've said
So I
that
mean,
many times. I've said that
yeah,
many times. And
yeah.
thank you for, without prompt or script, affirming that.
Um, and it's interesting how human capital is evolving. I mean, we topically today we think about issues like diversity and inclusion, and we think about it related to minorities and women in the workforce and things like that. But it really is a much wider issue. It's about
Absolutely.
everybody in the workforce feeling included. And I have been a great fan over the years of everything you can do to enhance the culture of an organization in terms of making it a great place to work, um, which is extremely difficult. It's one
Yeah.
of the toughest management challenges in establishing a workforce where people want to be there. And yes, you can have the greatest talented workforce in the world, but if you don't create an environment where those people want to give everything, 110%, and can give everything, then you're not going to optimize organizational performance.
It was the ISO 30414 standard. How did you become involved in that project?
Well, I originally got involved because I've always been interested, as I say, in organizational culture. That's been
Right.
a focus for me. And one of the things I heard about was this ISO group called TC Technical Committee 260
Right.
was working on the development of management standards for human resources,
Right.
human capital management. And so very quickly after sort of volunteering to join the Canadian committee, I ended up as chair for a couple of
Right.
years of the Canadian TC 260 committee,
Right.
which of course opened a whole portfolio of work that was going on under the technical committee and quickly got me involved in working group two, which is the metrics working group. And
Right.
so I'm currently, even though I gave up as chair this year, I remain on the working group for the human capital metrics. Back in the 19, this begins to date me, I know, in the 80s and 90s, one of the big issues around management was quality management.
Sure.
There had been a very heavy competitive inroads made into North America, in particular in the automotive industry, but
Right.
in
Right.
many other industries, and by in particular Japan. And one of the key realizations was quality management is not about the inspectors on the line inspecting quality into the product. It's about how you run your organization, how you manage your processes, including how you manage your people. We still think of human capital as being the responsibility of the human resources department.
Mhm.
We look at many of the metrics we're using today. They're typical traditional human capital, human resources metrics, which is a great starting point because
Yeah.
at least that gives you an understanding of where you are. Um, but we're at the beginning of a journey. We're at the beginning of a journey that is going to put people, human capital, at a very strategic level in the organization, because it's not just how human resources manages the talent pool, it's about how the whole enterprise. He said, well, ISO standards aren't going to bring you a quality product, but he said what they are going to do is bring organization out of chaos.
Mhm.
So to a degree, it's the starting point. It's really the what would you call it, the jumping off point to building a better way of reporting and understanding human capital.
But how do you reconcile a concept like culture with the idea of a standard? you know, is I think a lot of people on the
Mm,
surface would say
mm.
those are different denominators, but culture and standards, how do we make those two fit together in a mutually beneficial way?
That's the sort of question that's always risen, I think, around the whole issue of standards. I mean, it used to drive me crazy in some organizations where I was involved in helping them put ISO 9000 in for a quality management system, where people would turn around and say, this is going to destroy innovation in the company.
Yeah,
This is going to
yeah,
straitjacket what we're doing. It's not going to allow people to change things when they see a better way of doing it. And everything that we've learned from well-managed organizations is they need to be innovative, they need to be creative, they need to be flexible. And by the way, those are all human qualities.
nice.
So,
Yeah.
we can't talk about an organization being innovative and creative and flexible and agile and all of the things we drive it to be without saying it's the people. It's not the organization that does that. It's the people in the organization. A great example of where this helped in the quality management area and where it helps, I think, in human capital is that very often organizations would find better ways of doing things, but because it was never documented, it's because it was never built into the training programs, because it was never sort of embedded in the way that supervision was trained, very soon organizations slip back to doing things the way they used to do it. And one of the advantages of standards is you put a discipline in place that as you change, you make sure that that change is cemented into the organization for the next cadre of people that you're going to train. So it's a way of as Red Shaughnessy said, God bless him, of instituting order out of chaos.
And so
But
I think we need to get a better model of sort of the development of the career pathing of HR professionals. And I certainly believe that things like the ISO standard are an imperative related to this. So
yeah,
please go ahead.
yeah. I mean, I think I have to. I'm not taking you to task on your definition of
Please do.
HR. We can't confuse human capital management with human resources management.
Nice,
I
nice,
think they're
nice.
profoundly different things. If you think about so much of our focus around human resources, we have to have all the basics right. We have to have all the processes and systems and structures. And I think a lot of the things related to the standards are very, very good around that area.
Right.
But I think we also have to focus on this issue of culture, right? Um, when we think of human capital, um, the effectiveness with which that conversion takes place has everything to do with how people are treated during the day-to-day activity in the business. You can have the greatest talented workforce in the world, but if they're not working in an environment which is motivating and supportive, then you're not going to maximize the value creation of that organization. But the culture, which is really the environment that's created within which those people work on a day-to-day basis, has everything to do with the difference between what talented people can do and what talented people in a highly motivating environment can do.
Do you think, not to put you too much on the spot, but do you think that this domain of human capital management, reporting, and strategic value is going to be under the domain of HR, or is there going to be another place where this lands? What do you think?
I think in the same way that there's a need for a functional area of expertise in most of the resource areas that organizations have. For example, quality management. Quality managers didn't go away, but they worked in an environment where quality became a strategic organizational issue, not something that was just the responsibility of the function.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's exactly what HR is going to evolve into. I think, and this goes back to your point, Brad, that I think HR is going to be populated by what I would call the sort of the evolving future professionals in the area of HR, which are very close to the CEO, very close to the general manager, because unless the person at the top of the organization understands the concept of managing the workforce and creating the right culture, then human resources at a department is not going to be able to achieve the goals that they want to achieve for the organization. Because I think one of the big problems we have in accounting, we don't make it clear to the senior leadership of organization about what they're missing out on by not optimizing the performance of human capital. And the amount of positive engagement that an organization loses when those arbitrary decisions are made across the board to improve the bottom line, from an investor's risk point of view, are significant, are very significant. And the cost of poor culture really says to organizations, look, if you're not paying attention to culture, three things are happening that you probably don't know. The first is that you're probably at risk for greatest financial surprises. And you can only look at the number of fines and penalties and things like that that organizations have had to pay, because people not only haven't acted ethically, but haven't acted in a way that the organization expected them to act. The second area is hidden costs. I mean, we know that organizations have significant hidden costs. Lack of cooperation, lack of collaboration, turf wars, protection of territory, not sharing information. I mean, these are costing organizations significant amount of money. They're driven by poor culture.
Yeah.
And the third area is, of course, lost opportunity, because we talk a lot about innovation and engagement, but culture, creating the right environment, allows people to, in fact, use the talent they've got for the betterment of the organization. So I think we're seeing some cohesion in external frameworks. And I think a very important role there is the role of ISO 3014. If we continue down that path, we're continuing down a path of, I think, coming together and focusing on what are the right things. So we're reducing the proliferation of frameworks, which I think is a very important thing to do. And as I say, I think ISO 30414 has a very important role to play there, especially as we begin to see organizations like the SEC saying that human capital reporting is now going to be mandatory. Well, great. If you don't know where to start, it's going to become mandatory if you map what's in the legislation, the draft legislation, because it hasn't been approved yet, I don't believe. But if you map what's in the draft legislation to ISO 30414, there's a high level of consistency.
Yes, yes.
So the good thing about ISO 30414 is it's not the answer, but it's about 70% of the answer. So you know, if you go down that path, you're probably going to satisfy a large number of the other reporting requirements. Where are the key linkages between human capital performance and value creation and sustainability at an organizational level? And this is typically the way that problem solving works. You know, you open up to get the best ideas, and then you bring those best ideas together and focus on the ones that are going to give you what you need.
Wonderful, wonderful place to sort of close off our discussion. Nick, I want to thank you for taking out the time and sharing your wisdom. I know I took a lot of wisdom from what you said. I also want to thank, I don't know if you noticed, but we had a special guest join in the background of your presentation today. I'm not sure if that was a German Shepherd, or I'm not sure who your collaborator was.
Her? Yes.
What was, who joined us?
That is Miss Millie.
Okay.
Millie is
please thank Miss Millie for us as well.
I will.
Yeah. Okay.
That's great.
Thank you again, Nick. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your wisdom.
You're very welcome. Thanks.
All right.
Bye.